Canadian newspaper is having the last laugh after President Trump announced a proposal to allow Americans to buy cheaper drugs from Canada. Now, look, I'm actually in favor of this plan. Nonetheless, in an editorial in the Globe and Mail, these editors wrote, quote, all of a sudden, our complex medical regime has become the face-saving solution to a problem plaguing a president seeking re-election, while at the same time being a remedy he would never consider in his own country and which he is happy to mock. So now, again, I support this policy. I think it's at least a Band-Aid. It's something, and it would help reduce drug prices, which here in America are absolutely insane. But it is fun to point out that there is some irony in this position, because he's not willing to set the conditions which would drastically lower drug prices in this country. Now, the editors also note that in the past, Trump has derided Canada as, quote, a socialist failure. And yet they have cheaper drug prices and actually better health care. Ironic, right? But look, again, the plan here, and this plan's been echoed by Senator Bernie Sanders, Cory Booker, who was originally against it, now ended up coming for it, being in favor of it, I should say, after huge backlash, would basically allow Americans to buy drugs that are, now the interesting part about this is that these drugs are made in America and then shipped to Canada. So we're buying it from Canada, who bought the drugs from America, but at a cheaper price. Because it's cheaper in Canada, because they have government, the single-payer health care, of course, and they also have price controls, right? He'd rather allow Americans to do that than do anything to solve the high drug prices in America. And again, these drugs are made in America. Why don't we do something in America? I don't know. How about we do like Medicare for all? Or allow Medicare for at least to negotiate drug prices for pharmaceutical companies. We got to do something, right? That would actually bring down some of the prices. Which, again, Canada already does both of these things. That's why their drugs are literally cheaper. That's why people are going to Canada. Bernie Sanders just took a bunch of people over the border to go and get insulin. That is much cheaper in this country. Now, in Canada, the government, and this is what they do, they set ceiling prices for new patented drugs and limits the amounts by which that they can rise every year. Again, those are price controls. Now, you ask every right-winger about price controls, they said, oh my God, it's not going to work. It's going to lead to disastrous drug shortages. Everything's going to be terrible and on fire, and everyone will die. Like, literally everyone will die. But wait a minute. If there's a shortage, when you put in price controls, if there's supposed to be a shortage when you do that, then how come Canada doesn't have a shortage? How come Americans are getting drugs from Canada? How come your entire plan hinges on Americans getting drugs from Canada? If their system is so horrible that leads to shortages, it makes no sense. It makes no sense. No, the only reason that there would be a shortage is if the company decides they don't want to make it anymore. Now, I guess there are certain reasons. Oh, it's too expensive, right? Too expensive to make. We can't have a decent profit margin. Look, I understand that, right? The thing is that most of these medications that they charge outrageous prices for are actually made incredibly cheaply. Insulin, for example, costs between $2 and $5 to make per vial. $2 to $5. Now, it's sold for several times more. And even if you were to reduce the price by quite a bit, they would still end up making a decent profit, enough for them to continue making it. So, and here's the kicker, by the way, right? So, a lot of these companies that sell these drugs, they never even paid for any of the research for that. In fact, a lot of taxpayer money goes into research for these drugs that is then privatized and sold for a profit. Why is it that a private company is allowed to profit off drugs that we helped create, we paid for through our taxes? Why is that? They go and they take something that was publicly created, publicly paid for and researched, and then turn around and price gouge us for it. That's outrageous. That is outrageous. But this is what happens in America. This is what happens when you have a system built on unchecked greed. In no other country does this actually happen, Why? It's because they actually have a government that works for them. Price controls on certain things. Programs like single-payer healthcare and a government not captured by special interests. That's what they have. That's what we need. Now, one more bit of irony here. Now, the editors also noticed that, quote, they wrote that the president is encouraging at least one group of people to cross a country's southern border in search of a better life. Nothing gets by these guys. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know how I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.